the Strategic Day Trader, and this is your market wrap for January 22nd, 2020. All right, Qs up 1/3%, SPY basically flat, up just a little bit there. Okay. Now, what we've got going on the hourly is an attempt to move up to new highs, not much follow through there, and starting to come in. Now, we still need to get underneath yesterday's low, see some follow through, and then the next setup, we can start to expect some short-term lower prices, okay? So really, to going into tomorrow, we're still going to be bullish, okay? We are starting to watch for the potential that if we get underneath yesterday's low, we can start to look for either a sell setup or a base breakdown. Okay, so we've been watching the hourly very, very closely to see if we can break this uptrend. Okay, you can see 20 MA is not a bad estimate here of the support of this uptrend, right? And so we're starting to give it a test here. Okay, so we didn't get either of the other scenarios, which is acceleration far and away from the trend here on the daily or the hourly. Right, we didn't get either of those things. We didn't get a huge gap down, kind of the trend changing gap down either. So, you know, as far as calling some kind of long-term top or into the bull market, I think is still premature. What we're watching for here is that if we follow through on today's kind of weak afternoon, we break through yesterday's low, the next retracement, the next base, right, we can expect follow through, at least in the short term, to some lower prices. All right, so we'll keep an eye out for that, all right, going into tomorrow and the rest of the week. Okay, on to today's play. Okay, so I included a link in the description for you to register for next week's open house. Okay, so it means you get to be in the room with us without a subscription, without any kind of membership, and get to follow the plays. Okay, so you get to follow the plays and follow the management and take advantage of all the scanning and everything else. Okay, so that will be happening next week. I included the link so that you can register for it. Okay, so today what I wanted to do is go over, if you are going to be joining us next week, how the plays are going to work. Okay, so that way you can follow along and you know what we're going to be doing. Okay, so starting off, we have the NAVI. Okay, so I am on Mountain Time here. So for me, open is going to be 7:30. So you can see this call came up 8 minutes after the open. Okay, so 8 minutes after the open. Now we tell you in the pre-market what the favorite gaps are going to be. So you already know in the pre-market what things we are watching and for which direction. Okay, so NAVI was one of the favorites for a long. You can see that this has been grinding lower and then gapping up, right? It is gapping up into resistance, but the really nice thing about this NAVI is that as soon as it opened, it shot up and broke through that resistance. Okay, so while I'm not playing it on this initial move up, it does come back. We get a little bit of consolidation right here, and that's where the play comes in. Okay, you can see here the top of that bar right there is 1462. I said over 64. I think I got filled like some at 6.6 and some at 6.7 after once it triggered. And the stop, I gave it a couple cents here. Should have been underneath this bottoming tail there. You can see that's at 49, a few cents underneath. So I'm putting my stop in at 14.45. So if it comes in and hits 14.45, I will be out. Okay, and then we'll move on to the next play. Or if it sets up again, we can always play it again or something. But you know, this triggered and it was pretty pain-free right away. Okay. Target one was 1490 because that was going to be new highs. So the previous move up to 1480 gave a pullback. We broke out to new highs and we got a bit of a pullback here. Okay, so we did trail half right as we got to 1490, I said 1 minute bar by bar, and you can see it trailed right there just for half. Okay, the reason I'm taking half is because I take half, it's a lot easier to live through that pullback, and especially because I am looking for bigger targets, right? You can see that on the daily here, we're through this resistance, right? And eventually I do update and tell you what target two is going to be. I just wanted to get that play in, give you what the first target is, so you're ready to go when it gets to that target to take some. Okay, so target 2, okay, after we got some out, I gave you an update. Target 2 is going to be 1515. We're looking to retrace the rest of this bar here. Okay, top of that bar was 1516. So I'm looking to retrace the rest of that bar for target 2. Target 3, we're going to get deeper into this topping tail in here, and that will be the final target. That's also around 4 risk units for us, right? So 4 R's, 4 times what we risk. So if we get to that point on those shares, then we'll take the rest and be happy with our gains. Okay, so we were still looking for more, just got the first target. Once we got that first target out, you know, it's a free play. There's basically, if it stops out, it's still a break even at worst play. I think that even that, if it stopped out, locked in some gains. So, you know, it does make it easier for us to move on, to look at other things, to scan for other ideas, you know, whatever else, and just makes life a little bit easier as a trader, especially when you have a pain-free trade, relatively pain-free trade there. Okay, so update on the targets. Eventually, we did get to target 2 in here. Again, we trailed it. I think the fill here was around 1510. I said go ahead and trail it as we got to target 2. Okay, and then eventually we did not get to target 3, but I said go ahead and trail under 1522 because the 15-minute had given us a nice kind of series of bars here to use for reference. So while we were in it, when it was making this new high here at 1534, we did exit underneath 1522. I think I got filled 1520, okay, on the last portion there. So you can see we were in it for about an hour and a half, right? All throughout this move, got in it from 1464, right? And took a couple different targets, trailed out the last piece right under there. It's actually not that far, even hours later from where we exited, did do a pullback and then come back in. Now, you might be wondering, why did I decide to exit when it wasn't at the final target? And the reason is because when I'm looking to trail the runner, that was what we were down to, the last quarter of the position, I'm looking for 1550. And at the time, this bar had just started, had essentially just started. I knew that we needed to wait another 45 minutes or so before it was going to finish, and I didn't have another trail. Now, we had already trailed it to break even because on the runner, I can't trail to break even because that's the idea. I'm trying to hold on to it as long as it's going to go, but there's no reason to lose on it. If I've already had a nice play, give it to break even. Sure, it's possible it could come in, tag break even, and go back up. But if I get a better trail off the hourly, then I'll tighten it up. Okay, and so because this was going to be a while before this bar finished for me, I decided to trail to the 15, right? And there will be times where I deviate from the plan. I said I'm going to trail this early, and maybe it trails and then goes right back up, right? We know that's going to happen, but just from the standpoint of what I reward to risk, how much I would have to give back potentially just to still be in this play to get to the final target, I thought what wasn't in my favor anymore, so I just did decide to trail. In this case, I think it worked out because we would have got trailed out on the hourly anyway, right? So, but for the most part, I do want to stay as consistent with my management as I can. For the most part, though, I thought we did a pretty good job on this. Was a pretty nice play. So, you know, at the open, sometimes plays are going to come up really quick. So I know some people played it, had a nice morning with it, and I know some people also didn't quite catch it. Okay, and that's going to happen sometimes, especially at the open. I do try to give you as much time to get in the play as I can. but especially at the open, sometimes, giving you the numbers is going to be a bit of a close call. But that's the format that they're going to be given. Okay, I'm going to tell you what the entry, the stop, and then what the targets are. And as I'm trailing, as I'm getting out of them, right before I trail, I'm letting you know this is what I'm going to trail to. Okay, so that you can, if you're intending to follow our management, that you can also do the same. Okay, so when you see these numbers, all right, next week, okay, just know that I'm going to give you the symbol, the direction, the entry price that we're going to be getting in above, and then the exit price that we're going to be getting out. Okay, so in a situation like this, if you put it 1465 as the entry stop, and then 1445 as the exit stop, you'll be fine, and you can calculate how much you're willing to risk based on those numbers. Okay, and then I give you the target so that if we approach there, right, that it's time to start taking profit. Okay, so I just wanted to use today's play as an example of how plays will be called. Okay, and it's consistent day in, day out. That's how the plays are going to be called. In the morning, we will tell you which ones are going to be most likely to be played, which are the favorites, right? So that when the thing gets called, you think, oh yeah, that was the one. I like that one a lot too. I agree with you. This is just confirmation. It's time to play it, right? And sometimes plays will not trigger. They'll take out the stop and then they're canceled. Yeah, it's just a normal procedure. Okay? All right. Hope you did well today. This was the only thing called for me, only thing I did. But I expect that we'll be getting a lot more plays in the weeks to come because earnings season is just picking up. We're just getting through all of the banks and I think some of the airlines, but we're starting to get a lot more names on the list. All right, so hope you're excited and looking forward to tomorrow. I will talk to you then. Have a good evening.